Zerubbabel and the high priest led a group of God's people back to Judah to rebuild the Lord's temple in Jerusalem. First, the priests rebuilt the altar. They gave burnt offerings to God and celebrated. Then they laid the foundation of the temple. When the foundation was finished, the priests put on special clothes and the people praised God. They sang, "The Lord is good. His faithful love will last forever." Not everyone was happy though. Some of the older people remembered what the temple had looked like before it had been destroyed. They cried and shouted loudly. Sometimes other people interrupted the building of the temple by making the people of Judah discouraged or afraid. At one point, the building of the temple stopped for a while. God sent prophets to encourage the people, and they started working again. At this time, Darius, the king of Persia, ruled over the land of Judah. The king was in charge of a lot of land, so he put governors in charge of some of the land. A governor named Tattenai noticed what God's people were doing. Tattenai asked the workers, "Do you have permission to rebuild this temple?" The workers said, "We do." Still, Tattenai sent a report to the king about what God's people were doing. They said King Cyrus gave them permission to rebuild this temple, Tattenai wrote. "Please search the royal records to see if this is true." King Darius's officials searched the royal records for Cyrus's order. They found it, a scroll with a record from King Cyrus. This is what was written on the scroll. "Let God's temple be rebuilt. It will be a place to offer sacrifices. Let its foundation be rebuilt." King Cyrus had also ordered for the cost of building the temple to be paid for out of the royal treasury. So King Darius sent a letter back to Tattenai. He gave this order: "Stay away from the workers in Jerusalem. Don't bother them or try to stop them. Give them whatever they need." Tattenai obeyed the king's order. The Jewish leaders kept building, and they finally finished the temple of God. The people celebrated and made offerings to God. They chose priests and assistants to serve in the temple. Then God's people celebrated the Passover. God's people were so happy. Now the temple of God was finally complete. God's people rebuilt the temple so they would have a place to worship God. Years later, God sent his son Jesus to be with his people. Now, God does not dwell with his people through the temple. Instead, God dwells directly with his people through his Spirit. Jesus provides something better than the temple. He gives us himself.